6 months ago, I made my first serious attempt to train my League of Legends mechanics. To put it simply, it didn't go well. But what if I approached it differently? What if I used a method actually backed by science? Yeah, check this out. They have a study for how effective the last hit training for the software is. This is insane. It's no secret that strong mechanics are a huge part of winning in League. But is it possible to practice only that aspect of the game and see real improvement? For the next week, I'm going to find out. I'll be using this app called Skill Gap to see if dedicated, focused practice can answer this one golden question. Can I beat a gold player in a 1v1? Ludwig hit Plat 4 in 535 games, and I'm trying to beat that. I am currently sitting on 228 games and my rank is Silver 4. And without further ado, let's get into the video. The first thing I had to do was give the app a bit of information about my role, rank, and level of commitment. Of course, I picked high for commitment and turned on survivals, which basically increases the duration of your training for maximum improvement. The next thing I had to do was a test. Now you might be wondering, what is the point of all of this? Well, based on how I perform, the app will give me a routine personalized for my needs, with each of the tasks ranging from a level of 1 to 10. Level 1 looks like this, and level 10 looks like this. I promptly ran through all the tasks, and the first thing I realized was how absolutely terrible I was. The program measured my ability to aim. Oh my god. So I survived for 28 seconds, and we have people out here surviving for 38 minutes. Dodge. Dude. Kite. Dude, what? That is impossible. So I have a score of 39 and the number one score has 683. How long has this guy been playing the game? And last hit. No way, bro. I get 3 chances. We have people with 138. That is insane. But it looks like we're done. Let's see what results we got. And after I completed the test, I was given a score based on how I performed. I'm assuming that these are based on percentile, which means I am literally in the bottom 50% for every single task. This is what the graph looks like. And with my results now out, I wanted to set a goal to reach the top 50% for every single performance metric here. So I started doing the routine the app gave me, and this is way too hard. Even the warm-up had me sweating. For this one specifically, you have circles that appear on the screen with buttons you have to press. And you also have a red circle that occasionally appears in the bottom right corner of the screen. And you need to press the D and F key to move the gray circle before the red circle makes contact. For the actual routine, this one exercise had me particularly confused. Basically, everything is running at you, trying to throw skill shots at you, including minions. And you try to dodge everything while hitting your skill shots and spacing everywhere. How am I supposed to dodge all of that? I finished the routine, and later on in the evening, I hopped on to warm up with some draft games. And that didn't go so well. No fucking way, bro! The first thing I realized was that I was against an Ezreal, and he didn't have anything I could dodge. The next thing I realized was that Ahri is a champion where the other opponents are actively trying to dodge her charm, and they don't move in straight lines like they do in the app. I was beginning to feel like this was already a waste of time, but something happened that would change everything. It's like weird. Did they seriously? They picked Ahri? She picked Ahri, the fuck? Normally, as a secondary pick, I would go Malzahar, but instead, I decided to go Vex. And almost immediately, I was convinced that this should be the champ I go forward with if I was going to use Skill Gap. Vex has a fear mechanic that basically makes the opponent run in a straight line, which makes it perfect for me to practice. In addition, her ultimates can be thrown from Narnia, which means most of the time, the enemies aren't trying to dodge your abilities, at least not in my rank. So I went into my first game, and honestly, things were getting off to a good start. I wasn't doing too badly with my ult, but what I was beginning to realize was that I really only hit my ult when it's pretty much guaranteed. Like when I am close to the enemy, when they are under CC, or if they are in a tight hallway. I also sent skill shots in weird directions because I was trying to kite. One thing I realized pretty quickly was how skill shots often felt awkward, especially since the map is slanted. I would throw my skill shots over a long range expecting it to end somewhere just for it to completely miss. I just did not feel confident with my ult, which made me really hesitant to throw out my ultimate. Unfortunately, I lost all of my ranked games on Vex, and the one I didn't lose had a Yasuo that AFK'd because I killed their support before the minions spawned. So before I continued, I made sure to note down these key statistics. My CS at 10 minutes for day 1 is 59, the highest number of kills in one fight is 2, and my rank is silver 4. Hopefully by the end of the challenge, all of these numbers go up and I'll be able to be a gold player. Currently day 2. The average for most of my scenes are actually level 1. So I think today's goal is to hit level 3 or 2 for all of my scenarios. The way you progress through the levels is to reach an 80% accuracy on the previous level. So I started doing my routine, but something strange was happening. The scenarios I was doing were completely different from the day before. It trained different things, like counting cooldowns in your head while dodging weird shapes, a typical aim task, and a rhythm game-like thing. But I finished and I did manage to achieve my goal of reaching at least level 2 on every single scenario, except for this kiting one, which I couldn't do at all. How do you? Then I went into some ranked games. My first game was against the Zoe, and honestly, I didn't notice much of anything. Most of the exercises I did in the app were kiting and dodging skill shots, and honestly, I was not noticing anything different at all. Now, I was playing well today, but I wasn't exactly sure if this was because I was getting better at Vex, or if skill gap was working. I was really beginning to think to myself that I got scammed out of €5. But right before I was about to call it, I had a pretty big realization. You see, skill gap has a range of champions that you can select for each level, but Vex isn't one of them. Another thing I began to realize was that this app was optimized purely for Ezreal players. It is simply much harder to reach an 80% accuracy on any other champion they offer. So I wanted to change my main role to bot lane and play Ezreal, but there's just one problem. So it turns out I only have one game on Ezreal, and not only that, I'm a mid laner, so I don't really know what I'm doing as bot lane. So I won't be going into ranked as Ezreal, because that would be an absolute waste of my time. Oh my god, I did it! Okay, let's go. We're doing Ezreal on ranked. So yeah, I queued into ranked with one game on Ezreal, and I started winning. Boom! Only plus 34. Now this was all just really confusing to me. How does anyone just hop onto their second game on Ezreal and start winning in ranked? Now it was win after win, and I was beginning to feel unstoppable. Maybe it was time for a change. Maybe I was destined to be an ADC main after all. So I queued into my third match of the day, hoping for a 3-game win streak, and I kept winning! What are we doing? I performed so badly, my Braum started tweaking out 7 minutes in the game. And then at the end, even my volley bear was asking if I was a real human. That was kind of a cue for me to stop playing Ezreal, so I went back to Vex, and I probably hit my best game in the challenge yet. The first thing I realized about Vex was that her skill shots were basically like Ezreal, but much bigger, which meant they were significantly easier to hit. And I began to get the hang of predicting enemy movement. If an enemy tried to move away from me, by putting my skill shot right behind them, they would walk right into it, and at the same time, the fear mechanic would push them towards me. In skill gap, a recent thing I learned was the concept of spacing. While playing dodge scenarios, I would always have trouble dodging Brand's circular skill shot. But after thinking about it for a while, I figured out exactly why that was the case. It's because my dumbass would always step way too deep into Brand's range, which gave him the ability to put me right at the center of his skill shot. That's why I needed to be just a little bit out of his range, so that when he did throw it, I would barely need to move to dodge it. I think this was the moment I began to realize how you could benefit from this app. Conceptually wise, I was learning, and hopefully by the end of the challenge, I will be able to notice a difference. Day 3 was the day where I tried to re-evaluate my skills. So it's day 3, and I know I haven't done this training thing for long enough yet, but today I want to evaluate my performance again and see if these 4 statistics have improved at all. In order to get these numbers up, I needed to retake the test. So I did it, and I am really, really close to hitting top 50% for all of my skills. On day 4, I got started with my routine, and I was doing a whole bunch of new tasks again. I think it was mainly scenarios to improve my CSing, and I think they were honestly some of the most difficult tasks I have ever done. There was one scenario where they had these circles that had health bars that went down, and you had to right click them when they went under this yellow indicator. The hard part was that all the progress bars went down at different speeds, which meant I was constantly required to keep track of every single circle on the screen. But eventually I ran through the playlist and I was able to get to level 6 on the scenario for last hitting, which was the highest I had ever gotten. The other scenario I did had also went up from level 3 to level 5, which was a good sign that I was improving, but all of that doesn't matter if I don't see any improvement in my game. So I went into ranked and I hit 76 CS in the first 10 minutes. And then the next game, I hit 71 CS. Let me remind you that 3 days ago, I was averaging 59 CS at 10 minutes. I think this was actually the first thing I did that actually worked. But CSing better will not win you games. I ended up losing both matches I played today, and it's definitely because I ended up making some really bad choices, like not looking at my map when Shaco literally shows up on my ward, or not roaming when my team literally needs me. There was also this one game where our ADC dies a couple of times in the early game, and our Maokai just starts freaking the fuck out. I can imagine him flailing his twiggy arms and crying like the world owed him a juice box. At 10 minutes, this dude starts playing top instead, probably because he's sick of playing with his ADC. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if this guy starts sharing XP with our top laner, that is like slightly behind the enemy top laner, isn't our Maokai like gonna put our top laner even more behind? They also just straight up lose a 3v1. And you're telling me this Maokai has the gall, the guts, to start complaining about other people? My routine on day 5 was mainly just scenarios on skill shots. I honestly find it really hard to imagine how this can be useful. I really don't know in what situation an enemy would move in a straight line like this. Maybe if the dude's playing with his eyes closed, then yeah, probably. But since there might be some secret benefit I don't know about, I'll stick to it. So I moved into my ranked games, and I pretty much just kept losing. Maybe it was because it was a weekend, but the opponents felt like they were on some crack cocaine. I went against the Syndra that abused her level up timers, and I have never felt so oppressed playing this game. Holy shit, is this guy smurfing? And I had a Jax on the enemy team that knew what target priority was. Looking back on the games on day 5, I was honestly shocked at how much I had to learn. I had issues with threat management, level up timers, thinking about the champion matchup. I honestly even missed basics such as looking at the map. All of a sudden, mechanics felt like such a small and insignificant issue. I honestly thought this would help me in the laning phase, but I realized there is so much nuance. There was absolutely no chance this tool could have made a meaningful difference. Let's take the Syndra game as an example. One thing I began to notice was how every time I walked up for a last hit, the Syndra would throw her Q. I realized in order to dodge it, I would need to bait out her Q by pretending to go for the last hit, which is like a combination of spacing, dodging, and last hitting. This was especially a big problem because you cannot practice against Syndra in skill gap. In the dodging scenarios, you are pretty much tied to only practicing against Ahri, Echo, Ezreal, Caitlyn, Lux, and Brand. So I did not understand the range of Syndra. Her skill shot was also relatively unique, which made it really hard to react to. I ended up losing both games I got filled into mid, and the one game I got filled into my secondary role, which was now ADC, I had purely won because I got carried. Today's main routine was kiting, which was really strange because I don't know if kiting is a skill I need as a mid laner. I was still in shock from how the CS tasks helped me, so I ran through them and then went into my ranked games in hopes that today I would at least end up positive. And I just started losing. Today's first game was against the Zoe, and she was like Houdini, appearing from the corners of butt-fucking nowhere and put me to sleep so much I was like a narcoleptic hamster. Every time I felt like I was safe, this Zoe would pop up like 8 Twitch ads, sleep me, and deliver an actual nuclear bomb to my face. You're kidding me. How does she... It was the first time I felt like I offered absolutely zero value in the game. Even my teammates were complaining about me. And by now, there was one single thought just repeating inside my head. I did not belong here. I have been losing games upon games this week. My win rate on Vex is literally 20%. If I won a game, it was because I got carried. If I lost a game, it was because I went 2 for 15. I began to question what I was actually doing. Was I that much worse on a champion that isn't Malzahar? Was reaching silver even something I deserved? Reality began to hit me like a truck. I could de-rank back to bronze, or even worse. The place I had been stuck in for 5 months. But for some unhinged reason, I wanted to keep playing. Even after feeding the enemy team like I was a Michelin star chef, serving up a 5-course meal with a salty side of tears, I couldn't stop queuing up. And if I had to explain why I felt this way, I think it's because this game sparked something in me I haven't felt in forever. I used to play squash in high school. My school ran this week-long program to yank us out of boring lectures and into random activities, and squash was my unlucky draw. To make things interesting, there was a tournament with about 30 other clueless kids, all of us swinging rackets around like drunk cavemen. Now, I had absolutely no clue about the sport. All we got was a half-hearted rundown of the rules and a tutorial on how to hold the racket. So when I staggered into my first bracket, my genius take was that squash was just table tennis for masochists played in a giant sweaty shoebox. But by some miracle of dumb luck, I progressed to the 4th bracket. And as soon as the ball ricocheted off the walls, I witnessed as the game transformed in front of my eyes. In that instant, my entire understanding of squash shattered and rebuilt itself. It was as if the court itself expanded. The ball's erratic dance, before looking like table tennis, all of a sudden started mirroring the intensity of tennis. I felt like I finally got it, like I'd unlocked a secret I didn't even know I was looking for. There was just this burning hunger to dive deeper, to turn my clumsy swings into something with purpose, even if I had no idea how. And although my game today didn't create the same epiphany, I was inspired to play better. And it's a hard feeling to describe, but it always feels like I'm centimeters off from just having something click. Every single time I begin losing, it's because of one small thing. One small oversight on the map. One small oversight on my ability usage. And that made me just want to keep playing. I lost 4 games in a row and still wanted to keep playing while trying to win. But there's 1 day left, which means it's time to see if I have reached my goals. In order to see how much I improved, I needed to complete the test one last time. I was feeling especially motivated today, and after completing my last test, I ended up with every single metric above 50%, except for my ability to dodge. I was honestly pretty satisfied with this result, but now it was time to see how I performed in my games. My first game felt a little different from the rest. My brain was working, and I felt like I did not miss anything. I warded, looked at the map, tracked my low states, and that eventually led to a point where I nearly had half of my team's kills. It felt like I had finally put together the puzzle pieces, and by doing so, I was being rewarded with a win. And now all that was left for me to do was to climb the ranked ladder and ascend into gold. Shortly after, the enemy team surrenders, and the game after that, I found out the puzzle was only half complete. The match begins, and I spot the enemy invading our jungle. In my mind, the first thing was that it's a free kill. I decide to flank the Morgana to block off her exit route, and that turned out to be a fatal mistake. What the fuck is bot lane doing, bro? I returned to lane thinking that this was still winnable. The enemy jungler would have a slight gold advantage, but it wasn't a big lead at all. So I returned to lane, and I began to notice something slightly different. The Syndra was not spacing me at all. In fact, she wasn't even hitting the wave. This should have set off alarms in my head, but I ignored it and decided to trade onto the Syndra anyway. Then, out of nowhere, Morgana Q hits me, and I proceed to die to the gank. Why the fuck is she here? What the fuck is this bullshit? Pack it up, fellas. It's over. Pack it up. It's time to go home. Now, I was a bit mad, but it was something I never experienced before, and now I knew how annoying a good support was. So I went into my next game, and my parents just decided to download the entire catalog of One Piece. Dude, I can't play the game! The entire time, my ping was horrendous, and it just made me so inexplicably mad. I would go as far as to say that it made me the most mad I have ever been playing this stupid little game. I had already forsaken the idea of ranking up and was purely playing to learn, and apparently even that wasn't allowed. So being pissed off as hell, I decided to end the day there, which meant there was only one thing left to do, to see if I can beat a gold player. Rules were a best of 3, and the winner gets absolutely nothing. Oh shoot.
I miss.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, I got it too. Oh shoot. I'm not sure if I hit you or not.
Nah.
No. Oh wait, I'm scared. Oh!
Ooh, nice.
No!
Nice one.
No, shit. Okay. Let's go into the next game. Let's go next game. Okay. Oh! Can I reach the equal pots here? Okay. Why is my flash on D? Oh my god. Oh my god! There's no way. No way! GG's, dude. GG's. So it wasn't even close. But how did I do for my CS? My highest amount of kills and my rank. My CS actually improved to about 72 at 10 minutes. Unfortunately, the highest amount of kills I got was still 2. And my rank, although I did manage to climb up to silver 3, I just dropped all the way back down to silver 4. So is skill gap worth it? I don't really think so. Mechanics are such a small part of the game, and I personally don't think the app has enough champions to warrant the practice. The last patch was also 4 months ago, which means it's not even updated that frequently. I'm also not sure if the scenarios are exactly helpful. I personally didn't notice that big of a difference, except for the CS drills. Those helped me a lot. Now, if you want to improve your CSing, this tool will help, but for everything else, I'm not too sure. Anyways, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.